Good morning. It's April 23rd, and this is To My Liberal Friends. And on the topic today, if you've got some comments, I'd like to hear because it's a very controversial one. Well, the Supreme Court's finally hearing a case on the 14th Amendment that supposedly grants citizenship in the United States to anyone that is born here. It's been a thorny question for a long time without any clear resolution. There are legal arguments on both sides, and they both have some merit. The three Democratic appointed justices were, as expected, opposed to any change in the birthright provisions. Early in the argument, Justice Sotomayor unequivocally stated that the court had held 127 years ago that anyone born on U.S. soil is a citizen, and repeated that holding in three other cases since. Well, that's false. The Supreme Court has never held that children born on U.S. soil to temporary visitors or illegal aliens are citizens. The Wong-Kim-Ark case to which she was referring explicitly dealt only with a child born to parents who were lawfully and permanently domiciled in the United States. And the word domicile, or one of its derivatives, was repeated nearly 30 times throughout that opinion. Any language in the opinion beyond that is not part of the holding. It is rather non-binding dicta. The same is true with the passing reference in the three other cases she cited. They are pure dicta. They are not statutory law. So her claim that the court has already issued holdings that are contrary to the President's executive order is basically untrue. This is the real crux of the issue. The 14th Amendment put this, quote, born on the soil concept into place because in the aftermath of the Civil War, southern states were making every effort to prevent freed slaves from voting. They would enact laws that basically said, if your parents were not citizens, then you're not a citizen, ergo you cannot vote. The Congress stated in Section 1 of the amendment the following, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny of any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. That's what it says in the Constitution. Now that might seem clear-cut to some, but to others there is a question of the legislative history behind the debate on the 14th Amendment. Over and over in that debate, the term, quote, country of jurisdiction was used when referring to people it would cover. It was aimed directly at ensuring that freed slaves could vote. I don't think there were many people sneaking across the border to become slaves. I also don't think that Congress, at that juncture in time, could have envisioned the massive illegal immigration that this country's faced. So I go back to the Wong-Kim-Ark case and reiterate that his parents were legally in the United States at the time, and therefore the court was correct in declaring for him as a citizen. That verbiage, in the country legally, is the key language. Until President Trump raised the issue in his first campaign for the presidency, almost all legal scholars writing in this area candidly acknowledged that Wong-Kim-Ark did not settle the question. Such is the hostility to all things Trump that the prior honest assessments have given way to certitude that is simply not accurate. One of the arguments in the case was that if someone were here temporarily and a child was born, how was the hospital to know what to put on the birth certificate? The rest of the Western world does not give that child automatic citizenship, and neither did our country for a full century after the adoption of the 14th Amendment. The key language in the amendment is, again, it says subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which means that the non-citizen must owe full allegiance to the United States and no other country. Do we presume that an illegal immigrant is not subject to the jurisdiction of his former country and that his children will be subject to that jurisdiction of that country as well? Now, I've heard Democrats and liberals berate the Second Amendment as being something that our founding fathers did not intend to be as it is today. They claim it does not grant the ability of individual citizens to own firearms. But today, they claim we have to read the 14th Amendment strictly as is written, with no discussion of the legislative history in Congress that led to its passage. Now, again, as I say, do you think that Congress in the aftermath of the Civil War, in an attempt to protect freed slaves, could have ever envisioned the massive wave of immigration we're having today where people are illegally crossing the border? When this comes down to is the meaning of the word in the amendment and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. These words have been the scope of the debate and has divided legal scholars since 1868, and now it's finally going to come to a head. As an anecdote, I'll tell you, when my brother was the chief of staff at HHS during the Reagan administration, he was invited to visit a hospital down in Brownsville, Texas, right on the border. The hospital administrator asked him to meet him there somewhere like 6 in the morning, My brother was a little bit confused, but he did. When he got there, the administrator walked him across the street to a strip mall, and he asked him, how many of these stores you think are open? My brother looked around and said, none. He says, then why are there 6 or 7 cars here? Again, my brother didn't know. The administrator said, because in each car, there is a woman who has come up across the border from Mexico. She's pregnant. When she goes into labor, they're going to cross the street, dump her at my hospital, and I got to pay for these costs. Now, the administrator wasn't interested in the immigration issue. He was more the cost of what was being dumped on him. But the fact remains, should that child then be a citizen of the United States? I don't think so. And I think the court's going to finally resolve this issue, and hopefully we'll come down on the right side. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.